Now, rest of a few hours is nothing. Rest is a seasonal thing where migrations are formed. The purpose of migrations is that animals follow the rain and they move in response to rain. And there's a giraffe now about to emerge behind the kudu. How wonderful is this scene? It's just a smorgasbord on quarantine this afternoon. And so with allowing animals to follow a very large migration route, you'll end up finding 5 to 6 months of the year areas will have absolutely no animals on it, which allows it to regrow, allows it to regather its vigor. Now, if you don't understand what vigor is, an explanation I was thinking to myself is if you take a pot of coffee, a plunger coffee, or even one of those percolators, and you make the first percolator and you let it filter through and you drink it, and then you go and pour more water in there, and then you let that filter through and drink it again, the flavor and the strength of the coffee gets less and less and less. But if you completely replace the coffee in the top and add water to it, you will get that different strength of the coffee, allowing it to get a different strength over time. And vigor in grass, if you keep eating grass, it is going to lose its sort of strength and its ability to bounce back. And constantly doing that will eventually lead to grasses completely losing their ability to actually really do what they do best. Hang on 1 second. Afternoon, Rex. I'm just here in quarantine with a nice slumby of WildEarth, a giraffe, and some kudu. You're welcome to join me. Rexon is taking the first official drive, I believe, for Tombeta. I don't know if they were out last night, but it's the first time I'm hearing him on the radio. And isn't that wonderful? Nice big male giraffe. He's coming to hang out in the middle of this herd because he knows that there's safety. Alice, do you want to know if animals will gather in open areas when there's storms around? Most certainly, if it's windy, these animals lose their ability to really hear very well and detect the presence of a predator. And what you'll see when wind picks up is that leopards and lions almost immediately stand up and start hunting. And so these herds together are in a very large group at the moment, which means they're all able to put their heads down and feed, which means they're able to increase their vigor. If they were standing on their own, they would be a little bit scared because the wind would be moving and every leaf rustling in the grass would be seemingly a threat. But being in a large group like this, they receive a lot more eyes and ears, a lot more time to have their head down and pick up their condition. And as soon as it gets very windy, you'll find many of these animals out in open patches as much as they can, turning their back to the wind and staring off into the direction the wind is going, because that is generally the direction the predators are hunting from. And in this time of day, it is possible for predators to catch impala and kudu and the like, but as soon as it gets dark and a moonless night with wind, it becomes very, very advantageous for a pride of lion or a leopard to hunt, because the conditions provided by the environment make it so much easier for them to be stealthy. There we go. He's busy chewing. He's looking at all of the other impala over there, wondering, should I go that way? So 1-year-old, he was born November the year before last. Hello, Clown Sharon. You've answered your own question there. Yes, giraffe have got the same number of cervical vertebrae in their neck as we do, 7. They've just enlarged them. They're all much larger in size, but it's exactly the same number. So they haven't gone and designed anything new. They haven't created new bone in the body. The neck is just stretched and stretched and stretched. And if you think about it, the impala have got the same, and so do the kudu. So many of these animals, once upon a time, were probably quite small with very small necks. And we can go all the way back to the fish, which is probably some of the most ancient of organisms. And we talk about the pharyngeal nerve, which is a nerve that connects the brain to the voice box in the throat. And in a fish, it's a very straightforward process. From the brain to the voice box is only a couple of centimeters, maybe a couple of inches, a very straight line. And in all animals, there is a pharyngeal nerve, which is an indication of evolution. And in the giraffe, you can have a look at the pharyngeal nerve. It is the most incredible thing to consider because it starts in the back of the brain. It goes all the way down the giraffe's neck and all the way around the other side of the neck to end up only a few inches away from where it started. So it just goes to show that that nerve, with the lengthening of the neck and the increasing size of the cervical vertebra, also stretched and stretched and stretched. And no engineer in his right mind would ever design a system where you have 10 meters more wire than you need. He would go from point A to point B in the most direct route. But because the giraffe's neck has got longer and longer and longer, so it has forced that nerve to stretch as well, which is very interesting and a very sort of case in point indication that giraffes have evolved that long neck, and it wasn't something that just happened. It was a very slow process. The giraffe once upon a time was probably something not too dissimilar from something quite similar to a duiker. But each of these animals have fitted into the landscape at different levels. And you'll see the kudu there. He's a little bit taller than the impalas, which are a little bit taller than the impala, which are a little bit taller than the duiker, which are the same or slightly taller than the steenbok. And then, of course, the eland is slightly bigger than the kudu, and the giraffe right up on top. Stuck in bed, I'm not certain about whether giraffe are more at risk during lightning storms, but any animal really, if they happen to be under the wrong tree at the wrong time, will experience lightning. Noelle, 2 years ago, if you recall, we had an enormous lightning storm that hit very close to home, hit a massive big knobthorn quite close to Gallagher Pan, and there was a duiker underneath it. And when Noelle found the duiker, it had this sort of lightning strike, sort of Harry Potter scar along the side of its body where it had been hit, or the ground had been hit, and the duiker's body itself had basically just been destroyed by the lightning strike itself, and the tree exploded. So whether a giraffe is more at risk is hard for me to tell you. But I suppose being tall, you are a little bit at risk here. Rexon is coming to say hello. Just give me 1 second. Good afternoon. Yes, Awesome Sky has a question. What can I do for you, Awesome Sky? As we watch the kudus eating the apple leaves. Yes, Awesome Sky has a question. What can I do for you, Awesome Sky? As we watch the kudus eating the apple leaves. Awesome Sky. Well, yes, animals learn out here from their parents and from other species as well. So we know this because of the many breeding projects that have undergone to the reintroduction of sable antelope, the reintroduction of wildebeest into places like the Sabi Sands, sable as well. And what they've realized is that if those animals are bred in an environment free of predators, they don't learn the necessary alarm calls. It was a very expensive project and a very expensive mistake. Sable breeding project once bred an enormous number of sable, and they are very expensive animals at the moment. And then they reintroduced them into an area with animals like kudu and impala that knew there was a lion or leopard, and they were alarming, and the sable had no idea. And the lions just picked them off one at a time. So they will learn if you put them out in an environment like this where there is a reality that the alarm calls are followed by some form of stress. The animals will learn, okay, that alarm call means that. But if there's no reinforcement We often talk about habituation. We talk about negative and positive reinforcements, and I can use a very good example with you. If I happen to say something to you, a word or a phrase, and then hit you with a stick, next time I say that phrase, you're going to flinch. But if I say something to you and I don't hit you with a stick, and I say that again, you're not going to flinch. So that's what we call positive and negative reinforcement. Negative reinforcement is when an animal gets injured, hurt, or killed. Positive is when they receive a reward in the form of food or whatever it might be that might be positive for that animal. So if these animals learn that that loud that impala do indicates that there's something around that's going to eat one of them, including the impala that they probably see getting eaten, or their friend the first time, they're going to learn very, very quickly that that noise is quite well related to some form of danger. And that has been very well demonstrated with the fork-tailed drongos that we find across on the western side of South Africa that actually have picked up the ability to mimic alarm calls so as to distract the meerkats when they find food. So there's a very, very nice documentary out there of fork-tailed drongos following a meerkat family around. And as soon as the drongo saw that the one meerkat dug up a scorpion, it made this alarm call. All of the meerkats went trundling into their holes. The fork-tailed drongo flew down, ate the scorpion, and was obviously benefited from the result. The meerkats, though, were a bit perplexed, were uncertain of it, but the fork-tailed drongo also has to, from time to time, have a real alarm call that does actually indicate predators, so that the animals will start to listen to them, or will listen to them. Otherwise, the game of cry wolf is very relevant. They'll stop listening and stop listening, but there needs to be some form of aspects of danger, and so projects these days are incorporating other animals in and around them, with maybe even a small number of predators nearby, so as to mimic the natural conditions. So when these animals are released, they have a very good idea what's going on with regards to that alarm call. And when they spend years together, they learn that that noise is a reinforcement indicating that some danger is afoot. Hello, Erna. I'm not certain. I've only ever seen one animal struck by lightning. That was the one Noel had, and the following day it was gone. So unless it managed to resurrect itself from the dead and walk away, something ate it. What it was, I'm not sure. Hyenas are not against eating cooked meat. That's evident in the fact that Botswana has become quite an issue with hyena because of the amount of people cooking meat around open fires and throwing meat and bones to the hyenas. Many camps in the Kruger as well, they're fenced around. They'll always throw bones and leftover meat to the hyenas who don't worry too much about it. They just scoff it up, no problem. But it might have a different smell. I don't know. I've never heard that before, but see. Now, what happened there, just to the left, that kudu on the left there just ran because the oxpecker on its back decided to move. And the oxpecker made an alarm call and caused the kudu to jump. So that is another association between the birds themselves. Jet Set Gypsy, I suppose you could call it a mane or a little bit of a beard. I've never thought of what the hair underneath the kudu's neck is called. One of its purposes is to increase the size the animal appears to be. It makes them look bigger, like with the nyala, who compete with each other. They only fight with someone they feel will be the same size or a good match. But what it also does is, and the wildebeest herd is going to come and join us now. What it also does is that the entire line or outline of the kudu's body is covered in a sort of little line of fur. There's not a smooth portion of the kudu's body at all, apart from the horns. Everything's got a little bit of a sort of a shaggy outline, if that makes sense. When you consider that versus the impala's bottom, or that of the wildebeest bottom. They've got a very sort of smooth appearance, and in thick bush you would be able to see wildebeest quite easily because the three-dimensional characteristics make them stand out quite well. Whereas if a kudu is in even medium sort of vegetation, it will not be visible at all if it doesn't move. So I'm not 100% sure what that fur on the neck is. I suppose you could call it a mane, but it's not something I've ever heard it being referred to before. But maybe someone out there knows, the kudu experts who know all about the fluff on a kudu's body. It definitely serves the purpose of breaking up that neck outline. You can see it quite clearly there now. The guy who's just walked past got a much longer amount of fur there, which makes his neck look extremely thick and powerful. And you can now see the comparison between these three species. Oh, he just horned him in the bottom. How wonderful is this though, everybody? All of these antelope out in the open for us. Oh,